It's been a while since I reviewed The Red Ranger Becomes an Adventurer in Another World, and I thought I'd come back with episode 6. And yeah, second take, delete the footage. Well done, Mark, well done. Where we last left off, everyone had teleported to the main city, and we are continuing on from that point. Everyone is looking after Taltina. She is recovering after she has been draining the mana seeds. Again, episode 5, go check it out. But the episode actually gives us some more insight into how the world works with magic, and that's what I generally really like to see. But again, it's like your typical stuff that you see in anime in general, how magic is kind of work. Again, typical anime. One thing that I'm generally kind of curious is, how did Red survive those months and months or years, whatever it was, in the city on his own? Did he just sleep in the giant robo? Because I generally would have opted for that all the time. You have a place to at least sleep and no one's going to attack you in a giant robot. So you could easily hide in the mountains or wherever and just sleep inside it when you need it. You don't need no stinking inn. Get rid of it. Just get rid of the inn. Just sleep in a giant robo. In this entire episode, you find out how magic works in this world. If you're an adventurer, you can use it whenever you want. But if you're using it for research in any sort of way that way, you have to have a license. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, no one is going to stop you as an adventurer. Be like, oh wait, have you got a license for that? I need to see it. No, if you can create fire, you're going to throw it everywhere. If you're going to heal, you're going to heal. You're not just going to be like, well, I have to have a license. So it's one of those things where I saw it from the good side, but it would just really suck if you had to have a license to just practice magic at all. Royal Spectre, I think I say the name wrong every single time, has control over all the research that is happening. And I can see that. You're the royal, you are the top dog in this. So of course, you're going to literally have control over all magic research that goes on because you want to make life a little bit better. But the way that she acts a lot in this, I generally think she wants a lot more control and to be the only person that can use magic or is able to grant whatever. Like, she wants to have more control over everything. But when she has a massive go at Ydra, I was like, oh, is she going to be the main bad guy? Is she a puppet much later on? So like the big bad has control over her so that they can use magic whenever, or magic is not permitted, whatever. It feels like there is something going on here. And especially with certain looks where she's smiling in certain things, I generally was just like, oh, okay, this is going to be bad. It's going to be interesting if I'm right, but it's also an interesting thing wherever it goes. She has a go at Ydra, and Ydra hits the floor, and the royal scepter just literally pokes her chest, roughly where a lot of mana seeds are. Now, I would be curious to know is, did she actually implant a mana seed in Ydra, because just of the way that she's constantly poking and the camera effectively focuses in on that one particular point. So I'm wondering how far that's going to go. Also, when the Royal Spectre actually talked to Red, she's like, do you agree that Ydra's dream is too over the top? Do you think this? And Red kind of agrees, says, yeah, I think it's a big enough dream that can take a lot of time. But rather than finishing off his sentence, he's about to, but Ydra just literally summons a broom and then just cheeses it out the way, and that's it. At this point, I'm like, why aren't you just listening to him all the time? Because you know what he's like. You know that he's going to give some good speech because he loves your dream, but she just doesn't like it and just blasts out the window. And I'm like, okay. But what I didn't expect was Red to follow her on the bird robo. And I'm glad that he did, because it means that he's able to use any of them on their own. And it's not just, oh, I can summon them all together to make the giant robo. This one has to kind of fly. But I thought that it would have been bigger so he could have sat inside the cockpit rather than just riding on the back. And I was a little bit kind of like, oh man, I'd like to see him just in that bird robo. It'd be really, really cool. What made me laugh is that Red goes quite high and then just jumps off and then tackles her to the ground. And yeah, it was just something that I kind of wasn't expecting. You find out that Ydra has kept things back, and it's her feelings for Red. This is normally a trope, which is absolutely fine, and I kind of like it because I'm wondering how the relationship is going to kind of form after this one. When they're back at the castle, they start to kind of have a talk about how they could be working together, Ydra and the Royal Spectre. And this is fine, but this is when she realizes that she does really like Red, and it's kind of interesting to see her kind of glow red, but Red has some really, really fantastic points in this too. But now we come to one of the lewdest scenes that we've seen so far in this series. It doesn't kind of make sense. Like, it could have been split up, because you have Ydra in the bath, she's looking over the crystal and she thinks of Red, and Red just kind of like drops in, he teleports in. But then it cuts to a scene where he's climbing up, talking to Logi about going to space and how Logi was like, thank you for taking me there. You know, it really gave me more of a perspective, but then gets teleported. Now, again, like, it could have been a scene where they cut into it, because it does look like he fell into the bathtub, he then ran to Logi and then got teleported again. It's a little bit to me, and yeah, I just kind of wish it was done a little bit better. But to summon Red, Ydra is looking at the crystal and it's all of mana energy. And later on, we find out that the mana is very similar to bond energy. So when they do a thing called an emergency Kizuana warp, said that wrong, that's how like Red is able to summon his friends when a fight is going on. And that is kind of cool. So it's effectively like Power Rangers. So, you know, we need you right now, Rangers, teleport to the command center. Boom, there you go. Ydra kind of says, hey, you know, would this work? Could this send you back to your universe? No, it won't. And Red is kind of stuck there, where it will be like probably at the end, like, I can send you back, but you'll choose to stay here anyway. So we get a bit more lewdness, where Ydra locks the door while they're having that conversation and then just straddles Red, just straddles on him. That's it. It's a lewd scene again. Now, my entire favorite part in this is the morpher that talks. The next day, after all this lewdness has happened, Red and Ydra are like, oh no, like, oh, we're looking embarrassed, and everyone thinks that they fucked. It's simple. So when they're arguing, Taltina and Logi and all that, when they're actually arguing, at key points when they're saying something sexual, you just hear it say bond merged or bond merger, and I absolutely thought it was fantastic, and I wanted this on a separate sound so I could rip that and use that for videos if I wanted to. It's just absolutely fantastic, and it made me laugh. But the royal family thank Taltina for everything that she's done, but it's getting a little bit too out there. And this is where you meet the brother, who I think is going to be a bad guy much later on, or be tricked into doing stuff that he shouldn't have been doing. And it just comes across that so big. And yeah, it's just really, you just want to punch him in the face. They also say that they want to use a altered mana seed, putting it into their soldiers to give them enhanced abilities that won't turn them into monsters or stuff like that. And Taltina says it doesn't really matter, because some of them can mutate them into giant monsters, and we see 1 or 2 of them. I generally think, because it will control the soldiers, I think they will do it as the group are away doing stuff, and it will actually have an entire army that will turn against the royal family, and the brother won't see it. If the royal spectre is like, yeah, I'm the bad guy, or has been tricked, and that's what you will see. And I think that is going to happen much later on. It will turn against them, and they'll be like, we'll never use this ever again, and it's too late, because they're all evil. Just a thing, isn't it? At the very, very end, Ydra walks up to the royal spectre and says, hey, like, you know, here's some information. This is what I've been finding out. This is what you may need. And the other person just goes, fuck this shit, get out. You know, are you telling me what I'm doing? Like, we don't like this, stop it. And it then leads into another scene where she says, if you want to get on my good graces, then you need to go do this. And you see them at the very end. You see them walking in a desert to an oasis, which is probably the next best episode that we've seen in this series, which is going to come out next. But yeah, I generally really liked the story. It adds a little bit more into it and adds a bit more depth. You're slowly learning about the world and different characters, as well as different like tropes are going on. And I kind of like this. I think I would have edited that one scene slightly better, one with the teleportation, because it just doesn't really make sense and kind of takes you out of that world. But I do like the fact that they're adding stuff in that could be used in much later, like the emergency warp. I think that's fantastic. I can see them all using it, or at least using it for Red when they're like, we need you now, and he just teleports in like straight away. Again, it's going to be a fantastic thing, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing the rest of the series. But with that, I am going to leave it there. What are your thoughts? Do you like this? Do you not? Let me know down below in the comments and let's get this discussion going. And while you're down there, why not like and subscribe at the same time? Check out the Patreon as well as the channel memberships. And yeah, I shall leave it there. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. I want to say a big thank you to all my Patreon supporters, and I wanted to shout out Kimono Cat. Your help goes a long way to help support the channel, and if you want to help support the channel, the links to my Patreon and channel memberships are listed below in the description.
あらあら、チャンネルをサポートしてくれてありがとうございます。チャンネル登録、高評価お願いします。以下のリンクから商品を入手することができます。